And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sovereign Economist for this day before Thanksgiving, November 24th, 2010. And we're here on the Liberty and Freedom Radio Network. And we thank you for joining and staying with us. We're on with our special guest and very good friend, Bob Chapman. And Bob, welcome back.
Thank you.
Well, we were talking a little bit off air, Bob, about the criminality in Washington and kind of the the sentences and that sort of thing. And then we happened to make the conversation about what's happening. We've got the new Congress coming in. And, you made a comment about sort of the progression in which things are going in this country. And we talked a little bit about how, we're going to have another 3 million people drop off the unemployment rolls here, and Congress is going to end up getting paid off. We're going to have a stalled Congress. Nothing happens for 2 years. And in the meantime, out in the streets, the people are just going to get more and more downtrodden, pushed down, pissed off, and Lord only knows what. And at this particular point in time, I'm not a real optimist about the outcome. And try as I might, and I know this is Thanksgiving Eve, and I hate to be a downer about this stuff, but no one will ever accuse me of not being a realist on this show about the things we're facing. And if you look at Bob's track record over time, you look at what we've been telling you on this show, and you look at some other people out there that are wise enough, prescient enough, and courageous enough to tell you the truth about today and prognosticate a little bit about the future, you'll understand that we're not headed for a good place. Bob, where are we going to be 6 months, a year from now? What's going to happen? Where are we headed?
Well, I think within the next 2 years, we're going to have a big meeting, all the countries, and what's going to happen is that, like at the Smithsonian meeting in the 70s, the Plaza Accord in 85, Louvre Accord in 87, they're going to have a meeting and revalue and devalue the currencies and multilaterally default. And that is going to happen. And they're going to have either the dollar, if they have the gold they say they have, again backed by gold after it's been devalued, or they're going to have 6 major currencies backed by gold, and they will act as an international trading unit, and that's the way it's going to be. And there's nothing you can do to stop it, because the dollar was so debauched by Wall Street and banking, and the whole world's going to suffer. Probably the second and third world will suffer to the extent that they'll be half as bad off as the U.S., England, and Europe. And so nobody's going to be left untouched. And I think that's the way this is headed. The timing is very difficult. Will there be more wars? Probably. We just saw a false flag operation over in, between South and North Korea. They were testing. Evidently, the Iranian affair has been put off, I think for a number of reasons, which I won't get into. But that North-South Korea is the next viable war. And so they'll have that as a distraction, and it could become an international war like World War II. They've got to do something because they're trapped. Everything that they've tried to do is not working. And I have people who claim to know people on the inside and say everything is going their way. I don't agree with that at all.
I don't see how.
The radio, the talk radio like this show, and the Internet is killing them. Killing them. I mean, last week I got cut off the air 3 times. That just doesn't happen. And when do I get cut off? When I start talking about a false flag operation generated by the White House. Well, lo and behold, 5 days later, we have the Korean incident. And of course, that's exactly what it was, a false flag operation.
You know, and people will tell us, you know, and I hear that, and people will tell us, oh, you can't possibly know that. It couldn't possibly be a false flag. What do you? How can our government do this? Well, stay tuned to the Theaters on Fire tonight, because we're going to start talking about how the government can do this, and more importantly, how you can't believe it, and why you can't believe it. You got a lot less power over what you think than you realize. Stay tuned. That show comes up in an hour. But the thing that's interesting to me, Bob, is that, you know, and I know you must get this question constantly. I get it a lot more because, quite frankly, you're my mentor. I have learned so much from you. You know, you put me on to where to go look for things, who's what, who's trustworthy, who's not, because, you know, you've been at this for so long. You know, you understand what sources, you know, are good to follow, what ones aren't. You understand the wheat from the chaff and have the ability to, you know, to see the real story underneath this. But one of the things I have learned from you, perhaps more than anything else, is I like the technique of looking at history and looking at what has come before. And it turns out that these people aren't that smart. There's only a certain number of plays that they've got in their playbook that they can pull out. And so when you start to understand what motivates them, you can start to see the direction that they're probably going to take. And, you know, it was ironic. The first thing I saw when this Korea incident broke, I went on, I think it was Drudge yesterday or the day before, whenever it actually broke, and I saw the picture of smoke on the, you know, from the shot of the boat or the dock or wherever it was, on the island or land space across the way, and I thought to myself, another false flag. It never occurred to me. It actually never occurred to me in this day and age that this could be just genuine old, you know, friction and resistance between two countries. Well, you and I both know that doesn't happen. It's staged amongst the world's script and the world's agenda. But the thing I find striking is that when indeed you do start to look at these people, what they've done and what their history is, and you start backing into this stuff, boy, doesn't it make a whole lot of sense. Would we be?
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can. It did cut out, though.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that we've had a little bit of that going on here, but I think it's a cable problem, quite frankly. But nevertheless, the issue is that we do have this situation where all of these events, ultimately they're staged. Now, whether they're staged for genuine reasons of aggression or whether they're told to play this battle is, you know, kind of up to conjecture. But isn't it true, Bob, that quite frankly, that after you've been dealing with this stuff for a long time, it kind of becomes second nature and predictable? And I'm not totally out of my mind to have the first thing pop into my head when I see something like this anywhere in the world. It's got to be a false flag. It's a manipulation, and it's part of the move on the chessboard to the next level.
Well, that's right. You know, we all operate at different levels. And 4 or 5 days ago, Chalmers Johnson, who was a professor and a writer and worked on presidential commissions, wrote a number of books about the evil within the CIA. He died. And I thought it was a tragedy. And the reason why I thought it was that was because he has so much to give and never really got the opportunity to give it all. He's my age. And I just, you know, I feel cheated that I didn't know more about what he did. I read all his books. And he identified what I identified. I was in counterintelligence at a totally different level. He was at the top level, actually. And I was, but it was not as important as what he did. And you have this dichotomous nature of government where you have this great criminal aspect, and you only have a handful of people who are fighting for us. I mean, I can remember 30 or 40 years ago that there were a whole bunch of people in Congress who cared about us. They don't exist anymore. And that's why when I heard you earlier being skeptical about the future, I mean, just look at what happened in the elections. First of all, there's been 100 seats changed hands in the House and Senate. That's a net approximate 15% change. Normal changes are around 6%. It was an inroad. Now, we have to see how many of the new people in Congress and the Senate are going to do what their constituents want them to do, as opposed to doing what are the bidding, so to speak, of those who pay them off. And that's going to be the dividing point in the next 2 years in what happens. I see everything being locked up, a few things getting passed, and that's going to be the end of it. And finally, the real problem here is the American people refused to throw the criminals out of office. They don't get it. And because of that, in the following election, if it doesn't improve, the whole thing is lost. There will be revolution. And that's pretty simple. It's not a difficult decision to come to. And just look at the history of countries. When these sort of things have happened, there's been revolutions.
Look at Greece.
There'll be one in America.
Yeah, look at Greece. Look at France. France, they were out rioting in the streets and tearing Paris and other cities up because of austerity measures that said, oh, you have to wait 2 more years before you can retire. What? This is the other dichotomy. The American people, you know, we're still passive. Why? Because we're still getting our unemployment checks. We're still getting our welfare. We're still getting our food stamps. We're still getting our unemployment insurance. We're still getting our checks from the government because the government's got a guy named Ben Bernanke printing up the money like crazy. But do you realize that the first time that people don't get their checks anymore, and to, 3 million some odd people, that's about to happen soon when, not if, but when unemployment benefits are not extended at the federal level? You keep putting these people out in the streets, and you keep taking away everything they have. As Gerald Celente used to say, he says, you know, when the people lose everything and they've got nothing left to lose, they lose it. Another little segment I'm doing on Theater is on Fire tonight is of some violence that has erupted in places, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. How long do you think it's going to be before those people on the fine line between abundance and scarcity fall off into scarcity and feel that they have nothing left to lose? We had a murder this week where a guy who was being evicted from his condominium shot and killed one of the people that was there with the police to try and help get him out. This is a guy who's lost everything. And because the rule of law has broken down in this country, they don't feel like they have any recourse. There's no place to go. You can't call the cops. You can't file a lawsuit because the crooked judge is in bed with the bankers, and it's going to go against you anyway. And let me tell you something. When that mentality pervades this country, it is all over.